Hello, everybody. Welcome to Latinos and Heritage Conservation's webinar category Deep Dive, Building Organizational Strength and Community Interpretation and Engagement. So for today's webinar, I'm going to start off by introducing staff on the call and also our organization. We will do a brief review of the Nuestra grant program. Then we will dive into our categories today, building organizational strength and community interpretation and engagement. We will have plenty of opportunities to answer your questions. But for now, I actually have a question for all of you, which is which language channel are you listening in on? Believe it or not, Zoom does not give us that information. So that's why I have to ask via poll. So we're going to start by introducing staff on the call. My name is Patricia. I am the Preservation Grants Manager at Latinos and Heritage Conservation. I'm joined today by Karina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karina Malber. I am the Geospatial Project Manager here at Latinos and Heritage Conservation, and I will pass it off to Jen.
Hi, I am Jen Moran. I am the Preservation Research Coordinator at LHC.
Thank you both. I'm so happy to have you with me today. Now, if you aren't yet familiar with Latinos and Heritage Conservation, though this is our 5th webinar in the series, so you probably are, we are the leading nonprofit dedicated to preserving Latinx spaces, places, stories, and cultural heritage across the United States. Our mission is to build a movement that affirms Latinx heritage through education, conservation, and leadership development. Our vision is a just world that values Latinx heritage, people, and places. Before we continue with our presentation, I would like to make a brief note about why LHC uses the term Latinx. Our organization has embraced Latinx as a gender-inclusive way to refer to people of Latin American descent, but we understand that Latinx identity is complex and diverse, and people use a wide variety of identifying labels. Whether you use Latino, Latina, Hispanic, Chicano, Tejano, or any other label that identifies your culture and ethnicity, we are here to serve you. You do not need to use Latinx in order to engage with the work that LHC does or to apply to our grant program. Language is fluid and ever-changing, and we do not pretend to be the ultimate authority on this matter. Thank you for allowing me to speak on that, and we are always open to feedback from our community. So now that you've learned a little bit about Latinos and Heritage Conservation, let's do a quick review of the Nuestra Herencia grant program. Nuestra Herencia is the nation's first grant program dedicated to funding Latinx heritage projects. We have $600,000 in annual funding, and the program's goal is to empower grassroots, Latinx-focused nonprofit organizations and community groups to protect and celebrate Latinx heritage. The Nuestra Herencia grant program is made possible by the generous support of the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation in partnership with the Social Impact Fund. Now, heritage is a word that I have already said a lot and will continue to say throughout this presentation, so let's discuss what I mean. The definition of heritage is features belonging to the culture of a particular society, such as traditions, languages, or buildings, that were created in the past and still have historical importance. When it comes to the Latinx community, our heritage is a repository of traditions, values, and cultural practices. It serves as a collective memory. And this grant program was created to fund projects that conserve and preserve our heritage, which makes sense given the name, Nuestra Herencia. Now, let's also discuss what is historic preservation. LHC defines historic preservation as a diverse discipline committed to recognizing and safeguarding culture and history. Traditionally, it involves protecting historic buildings, archaeology, public lands, the environment, artifacts, and cultural traditions, significant in our shared history. But at its core, historic preservation honors and sustains elements shaping our cultural identity. We've been over these definitions in previous webinars, but I wanted to remind everyone because it is very important to keep in mind that Nuestra Herencia is a historic preservation and heritage-focused grant. Make sure you are considering these definitions as you write your application, and there is a glossary available on our website with other important terms. To be eligible for this grant, meaning that you can apply and be considered for funding, the organization you apply on behalf of must be a 501c3 nonprofit or fiscally sponsored, and it must be Latinx-led or serve Latinx communities. Our previous webinars have gone over the grant program's guidelines, the basics of grant writing, the project categories of capital projects and project planning, and even the importance of historic designations. Today, we're going to dive into the details of our final two project categories, building organizational strength and community interpretation and engagement. It's so important to understand the details of the project category that you choose to apply for because you can only apply for one. So you want to make sure your project strongly aligns with the category that you select. Nuestra Herencia's funding goals are another important thing to align your project with. I've specifically bolded the goals that have the most to deal with the categories that we are talking about today. You can find the full list on our website. Conservation of place-based history through documenting the history of buildings, landmarks, neighborhoods, communities, or cities, along with its significance to Latinx heritage and history. Representations of minoritized histories within the Latinx community, such as Afro-Latino, LGBTQIA+, and Indigenous narratives. And finally, increasing the capacity of Latinx preservation nonprofits by supporting organizational capacity building. That is the perfect segue to our first category that we will discuss, building organizational strength. This project category provides funding in the range of $15,000 to $25,000 to help with capacity building in your organization. This grant can help you hire a consultant that can focus on strengthening operational and managerial skills in areas like board training, fundraising plans, grant writing, strategic plans, and historic preservation best practices. Now, what is capacity building? Since I've also said that term a lot already today. The National Council of Nonprofits defines capacity building as an investment in the effectiveness and future sustainability of a nonprofit. So basically, capacity building is really about helping nonprofits grow stronger. It means giving them the tools, skills, and resources they need to operate more effectively, whether that's by improving programs, finances and fundraising, or improving their overall structure, so that they can keep moving forward with their mission in a sustainable way. We want your organization to be around for a long time, and capacity building is a way to help achieve that. Another definition is from the Black Equity Collective, which uses the term organizational resiliency instead of capacity building. They define it as an organization's ability to pursue its mission from a position of strength and adapt through socioeconomic and political uncertainty. Organizational resiliency programs invest in the leadership and institutional assets of an organization so that they can build long-term power and support an organization's longevity. Now, why does LHC fund capacity building? Why do we have this category? If you'll remember from the start of the webinar, our mission is to build a movement that affirms Latinx heritage. We want to reframe history and historic preservation so that it centers the Latinx experience and our stories don't go untold. A big part of how we build this movement is through leadership development. We want to support partners in their work to preserve Latinx history and help make sure they have the resources they need to be successful. We are a national organization. It's great that our staff represent different parts of the country, but it also means that we can't always be on the ground and support work in a specific area. That is why it is so important that we help our partners who are in the field and do this work in their communities. We want to empower and invest in you, in your concept, and in your success, because that is only going to help us as we build this movement. Also, capacity building is a rare funding opportunity. Not a lot of funders will support this kind of intentional training, meaning that nonprofits rarely have the opportunity and time to truly think about their strengths and the things that they need to do to build a sustainable future. LHC wants to help provide that time and support so that Latinx preservation organizations can achieve their goals. The Nuestra Herencia grant program also cannot fund salaries. Being able to pay your staff is a huge component of being able to accomplish your mission. We know that that's a hard position to be in as an applicant. So while we can't support staff dollars at this time, the Building Organizational Strength Grant can help you hire a consultant to assist you developing a strategic plan or a fundraising plan that will help you grow in a way that prioritizes securing funding for your staff. By supporting organizational resiliency, we are working to invest beyond one project. We are investing in your long-term sustainability. Another thing to keep in mind is that by supporting capacity building at this stage, we hope to strengthen your eligibility in other project categories. Our first three categories of building organizational strength, project planning, and capital projects are built as a pipeline. By starting here, your organization can gain the skills it needs to eventually tackle project planning or a large capital project where you might be preserving a large physical structure. They're intended to be stepping stones. Organizations who want to build towards executing bigger preservation projects and initiatives have a place to start with this category. Now, if this is if this is the category you want to apply to, let's think about how to write a strong application. The first place to start, the first thing we're really going to be looking at applications in this category is your mission statement. To be eligible to apply to building organizational strength, your organization's mission must relate to the preservation of Latinx history and heritage. Remember all of the whys that we were just discussing. LHC is building a national preservation movement, and we are looking for partners in this work. That is who we can support at this stage. Arts and culture organizations who are not engaged in preservation or conservation work cannot apply to this category at this time. If you have questions about your specific eligibility for this category, please email me directly, as I can't answer super specific questions while on the call, as I might need more time to formulate a response. So please ask questions here, but I'll also ask if my coworkers can put my email in the chat. So really, a clear, preservation-focused mission statement will make you a very strong applicant in this category. And also, as you are writing your application, it's a good idea to think about and answer the following questions. Why is this request especially important at this moment in your organization's development? What opportunities will this grant help you unlock? We want to know how this investment is going to impact your organization. So make a case for that and tell us why it's so important to get it this round of funding. And also, how will this funding help your organization make a lasting impact and stay strong over time? Those are things that you should really make very clear in your application so that way we understand what's at stake for you and why it's so important. Overall, your application should show us how the project you are proposing will strengthen your infrastructure, increase your resilience, and improve your ability to deliver on your mission. Our Cycle 1 grantees are a great example of what we are looking for in the Building Organizational Strength category. Centro de Conservación y Restauración de Puerto Rico, or CENCOR, is a nonprofit in Puerto Rico dedicated to promoting the conservation of cultural heritage on the island. Their mission is to develop the capacity of our communities in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean to protect and conserve their cultural heritage. Through education and training, scientific research, the provision of technical services and advice, the dissemination of knowledge, and community initiatives, we help our people explore their culture, history, and heritage in order to protect and preserve it. You'll see where I bolded the most critical part of their mission statement for this grant. They are a great example of having a partner on the ground who is doing critical work to study, conserve, and restore sites related to Latino history, while also engaging their community in that process and sharing why it's so important. They applied for funding to hire a consultant to assist in a financial planning process that will result in a 5-year business plan that will help strengthen and give direction to CENCOR's institutional development and growth as they continue to protect and preserve cultural heritage in Puerto Rico. Arizona Barrio Stories is another example from our Cycle 1 grantees. They are a newer nonprofit that actually started as a Facebook group, memorializing the Golden Gate Barrio of East Phoenix, which was the victim of eminent domain in 1976, and all of the families that lived there were displaced. The Barrio Stories Facebook quickly became a virtual gathering space with people sharing stories, photos, and traditions from their own barrios across Arizona. Arizona Barrio Stories' mission is to be the leading digital and social media platform for Chicano Latino communities, celebrating our rich heritage, diverse cultures, and shared experiences. We will collaborate with thought leaders and visionaries who share our values to educate, inform, and empower the public, promote community well-being, deliver original content, and advocate for and preserve our history and collective knowledge for all generations, past, present, and future, through storytelling. Again, I've highlighted the key part of that statement for us. Nuestra Herencia is Arizona Barrio Stories' first grant, and they are using it to hire a consultant to work with their leadership team to create baseline infrastructure and a strategic plan that will formalize a roadmap for outreach, engagement, revenue, growth, and sustainability. Since receiving this grant, ABS has actually partnered with the City of Phoenix's Historic Preservation Office to conserve historic Latino buildings by adding more sites to the local Phoenix Historic Property Register. That is exactly the kind of progress that we want to see our grantees make. If you are applying to building organizational strength, then your project likely involves hiring a consultant. That means that you will be required to include a request for proposal in the support materials section of your application. A request for proposal, or RFP, is a business document that announces a project, describes it, and solicits bids from qualified consultants or contractors to complete the work it describes. To find these consultants and contractors, you'll first want to make sure that your RFP is very detailed and clear about what your project needs. Once you've done that, you will distribute it widely through emails to partners, newsletters, your website, social media, and more. A great way to help secure quality proposals is hosting a webinar with a Q&A section, kind of like what we're doing today. This will ensure consistent information is distributed to the people interested in working with you. Consultants will submit their bids, and you should then review them using a standardized rubric. You'll interview your finalist and select from there. It is so tempting to go with the least expensive offer or proposal, but I want to ask you to please keep in mind how important it is that the people you hire have the experience necessary to do the job. Keep that in mind. Now, you aren't required to submit bids in the grant application, but you will be more competitive if you are able to launch your RFP prior to the application being due, and then provide those bids in the application. Already having proposals shows us that the numbers in your budget are more accurate and have a source, which speaks to project readiness on the rubric. But again, for the application, you are only required to include a copy of the RFP that you plan to use. That concludes our first category. So we'll take a quick break for questions. Please put them in the question and answer feature below. I'm going to take a sip of water and then see if we have any. I don't see any questions yet. We will have more time for more later. Okay, we'll keep it moving for now. The second category we're here to talk about today is community interpretation and engagement. This category provides support for public and community-focused projects that illuminate Latinx heritage through educational programs, place-based storytelling, and interpretive experiences designed to foster cultural connection and understanding. This grant can help with projects like history exhibits, historic markers or interpretive signage, and public workshops on preservation. The main vision for this category is to educate people on the history of Latinx places. Our history has been so erased and overlooked, and through educating the public on places and spaces connected with Latinx history, we want to reclaim our identity and our stories. Now, last year, which was our first year of the grant program, there was some confusion around this particular grant category. We've done some work to help refine its scope and address previous questions and concerns so that we can be clearer about what we're looking for. We do not want people to put time and effort into an application when their project isn't aligned with our goals. We know the resources that it takes to get a grant together, so we are striving to be transparent about the purpose of this category. So to be very clear, this category is not for arts and culture projects, such as concerts, teaching and sharing of cultural traditions, like playing an instrument, storytelling, or dancing, theatrical performances, painting a mural, community festivals, or any other type of general arts programming. Everything I just listed can be considered intangible heritage. The definition of intangible heritage is the non-physical elements of culture that shape a community's identity and legacy. This can include oral histories, storytelling, music, dance, foodways, celebrations, languages, and other cultural expressions passed down through generations. At Latinos and Heritage Conservation, we recognize the important role intangible heritage plays in our history. It helps create our identity and it shapes our communities. But at this time, we cannot fund intangible heritage projects on their own. Your project cannot solely be about preserving an aspect of intangible heritage. But that does not mean it has to be entirely excluded either. The project you propose just really needs to be place-based. Our definition of place-based history is focusing on the history of a specific physical location, such as a building, landmark, neighborhood, community, or city that holds significance to Latinx heritage and history. At LHC, we challenge traditional understandings of historic preservation. We know that a building or a place is important for more than its architectural style, who happened to design it, or even who lived there. Places and spaces are important because they hold our community's memories. And really, you can't have tangible, place-based preservation without the intangible, because that is often what gives a place its meaning and significance. So what I'm asking you to do is to understand intangible heritage as a complement to place-based preservation. Your work can include aspects of intangible heritage as long as you can tie it to a place. So start to think, what places in your community are tied to the cultural traditions that you might want to highlight? Are there any local venues that have hosted important Tejano musicians? What about a building where a Latinx social club held their Saturday night dances every week? Just keep in mind that our very first funding goal is conservation of place-based history. Educating the public about the importance and history of places in our cities and neighborhoods is a great way to do that. Let's look at some of our Cycle 1 grantees so you can all see examples of the kinds of project that we fund. The Shirt Cibolo Cemetery was founded in 1908 after an immigration wave of Mexicans into this part of Texas. As this area was mainly populated by descendants of German immigrants at the time, there was no community or Catholic cemetery available for local Mexican immigrants to use. A German farmer provided this piece of land to serve as a cemetery for Mexican farm workers. It represents the interconnecting history of this part of Texas and is a designated Texas Historic Cemetery. In order to better share the history of the site, the Shirt Cibolo Cemetery Association applied to the Nuestra Herencia grant program for funding to create 5 interpretive panels that tell the story of the cemetery. These panels cover the German and Mexican migration to this part of Texas, information on farm worker history, the religion of immigrants and its influence, history about the indigenous people of South Texas, and the ecology and history of Cibolo Creek, which runs adjacent to the cemetery. We also have the Blackwell School Alliance. For 56 years, the Blackwell School educated the Mexican and Mexican-American children of Marfa, Texas. It existed as a result of de facto segregation and is a symbol of resilience as the town's Latino residents struggled to maintain their culture amid racist treatment and unequal educational opportunities. Alumni formed the Blackwell School Alliance to preserve the school in 2006, and their work led to them being listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2019, and also becoming one of the newest National Historic Sites run by the National Park Service. Blackwell came under National Park Service management at a difficult point in time, and the interpretation and education around the site are currently at a minimum. This is why they applied to the Nuestra Herencia grant program for funding to create a traveling exhibit on the history of the Blackwell School and the Mexican segregation in Texas. So even though Marfa, Texas is very rural and the Blackwell site struggles with accessibility because of how rural it is, the story of this place can now travel across the state through this exhibit. 2 of the most common proposals we received in this category last year were for projects related to oral histories and digital archives. I want to talk about how to make these kinds of proposals competitive, if it's what you're going to bring forward. Oral histories are a method of gathering, preserving, and interpreting the voices and memories of people, communities, and participants in past events. For centuries, Latinx and Indigenous peoples have carried their histories through stories, songs, and conversations long before written archives exist. Many marginalized groups have done this. A digital archive can take many different forms, but at its core, it refers to the process of collecting and storing various forms of digital files, such as documents, images, recordings, and videos, in a way that allows people to access and use these materials for learning. A digital archive is usually more accessible to the public and can put up less barriers to voices that are historically underrepresented than traditional archives. They can also be a powerful tool for communities to control their own narratives and decide what is important to them to preserve. Oral histories and digital archives, or some combination of the two, are eligible projects in this category if you can make them place-based. A way to do that is by emphasizing site identification. Site identification is the process of locating and documenting places connected to Latinx heritage, often through research, community input, or surveys. Oral histories are a great tool for site identification because you can ask participants to tell you more about where they grew up, their favorite places to visit, the schools that they went to, and more. All that information you gather can help you find places that you didn't know about before connected to Latinx history in your area. And maybe those places are still existing and now you have the opportunity to protect them. The reason we bring up site identification as part of digital archives is because while a digital archive is an eligible project, it may not be a competitive one because we do not prioritize digital archives in our funding goals. Digital humanities are very important, and we see the need for them in our community. But when applying to Nuestra Herencia, you need to tie it to a place. Prioritizing site identification as a product of the archive is a way to do that. One of our Cycle 1 grantees is actually a great example of that. Native Bound Unbound is a digital repository and storytelling platform that centers the lives and histories of enslaved Indigenous people in the Americas. They applied for funding for their Mapping the Architecture of Indigenous Slavery project that centers the history of Indigenous slavery through the lens of architecture by researching and documenting buildings connected to this history in New Mexico. So while they are a digital platform, they applied for specifically for a project that will lead to site identification. Another great example of an oral history focused digital platform is LHC's very own Abuelas Project. I have Karina and Jen on the call to tell us a little more. Karina, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So I will start off first by explaining what is the Abuelas Project. So the Abuelas Project is a community-powered, place-based community library where we honor our grandmothers, the ones who have been carrying our stories for generations with resistance and with love. Meaning, this is a site-first process led by community-first narratives, and I will explain what I mean by that. So within the Abuelas Project, we utilize a GIS-based platform where we spatially display place and spaces of importance to the Latinx community around a central theme. We document sites in the Abuelas Project by archival work, oral histories, community workshops, public surveys, and much more. Currently, we are working on the untold stories of the borderlands, where we have specific themes for specific areas in different cities. We have been partnering with different organizations and those specific communities to conduct documentation at the grassroots level that will be displayed to the larger audience within the Abuelas Project. As mentioned through our webinars now, through Patricia, documenting a site is critical for its preservation. Through the Abuelas Project, working towards ensuring that we are getting these endangered sites on a map is important for its preservation. This means we work closely with our participants and focus on developing a relationship of trust and care before making public these stories. This is done by intentional partnerships where the participant is in control of their narrative by our selected methods, which our awesome colleague, Jen, is actually going to explain in the next slide.
So the tool that we use is called memory mapping. And memory mapping is, at its core, a form of cultural asset mapping, just without the extra jargon. Its purpose is to invite participants to pause, reflect, and tell the story of their place in their words while we record those locations in real time. At LHC, we take this process a step further by aligning our questions with oral history methods. This does two important things. One, it creates a natural transition into the oral history portion of our work, which comes directly after memory mapping. And it shifts authority back to the participant, emphasizing that they are the experts of their lived experiences, their memories, and their landscapes. After each memory mapping session, we intentionally make space to sit with participants. We check in on how they're feeling, and offer any room for closing reflections. Memory mapping can be emotional and deeply, deeply personal, as people are often naming places tied to family, community, loss, joy, or change. Holding space for that is part of this work. These maps become powerful complements to the oral histories and broader research that we conduct. They have revealed places that we did not know existed and surfaced community-defined sites that never appear in official preservation records. In this way, memory mapping helps humanize historic preservation, reminding us that preservation begins with people, stories, and relationships to place. And with that, I will hand it back to Patricia.
Thank you so much, Jen and Karina. That concludes our whole segment on community interpretation and engagement. The Abuelas Project and memory mapping, those are great resources that you can pull from in the work that you do. So now we'll take a second to answer some of the questions that we have in our Q&A feature. We have a question about school curriculum. Now, unfortunately, we are not able to fund school curriculum or K through 12 related activities. Those are not allowable expenses for Nuestra Herencia at this time. Our next question is, if we already have a strategic plan, is there any other way that the Building Organizational Strength Grant can be used beyond a startup level? My answer to that is yes. It can be used for a variety of different types of plans. So if you need a business plan, a fundraising plan, or maybe you need your board of directors to have some additional training, maybe around fundraising, there are a lot of other options because capacity growth is more than just a strategic plan, right? It's like we were discussing about how it's investing in training in any kind of area that you need that will strengthen your infrastructure, resilience, and sustainability. So if there's something else that your organization needs, then it probably can fit into that category. Our next question is about holding a parallel preservation or collection memory lab in a company to accompany a community event. So I believe this seems like it would be eligible. Again, please email me because that is the best way to get a really good answer from me on a project type. But I see what you're going with, and it reminds me of our Abuelas projects and their workshops, and how their workshops lead to memory mapping and site identification and educating the public about the history of Latinx places, which, like I said, is the primary goal of the community interpretation category. Our next question, can web-based platforms or apps be included as a product? I believe it would really just depend on the nature of the project you are proposing. Sorry to give such a vague answer, but please email me and I can give you more information. I'm going to go ahead and move on for now, but I'll answer more questions at the end. But I want to quickly run through the timeline for the rest of the Nuestra Herencia grant cycle. The application is due on February 13th, 2026. We will then be reviewing them, scoring them through May, and the grant awards will be announced in June 2026, which is also when the projects can begin. Our final webinar will be on January 15th, and it is called After the Award. It will have information on grant management and what comes after you receive funding. I'm also holding 2 office hours in the rest of this cycle, December 16th and January 20th. You do have to register for these via Zoom, but this is a way that you can get some quick time with me, answer some questions, or ask some questions. I will answer them. But please note that these are for the public, so anything you say in an office hour is going to be heard by anyone else in attendance. If you need more one-on-one time, please email me. I'm happy to help and work to arrange a meeting as my schedule allows. That doesn't look right, but that's okay. This slide is promoting our Endangered Latinx Landmarks program. This is an important program that will be launching its second cycle in spring 2026. It's a great complement to Nuestra Herencia as we want to help protect these endangered sites. So if you know of a place that you feel is significant to Latinx history and you think that it is in danger either because it needs extensive rehabilitation work or because of gentrification, or if it's truly about to be demolished, this is a great program. And also, if something's really about to be demolished, you can also email us. We would love to know. Another great way to support Latinos in heritage conservation is by becoming a member. So you can do that via our website. We have all sorts of wonderful benefits, more incredible webinars that are not just about the grant program. So that's great. And now I will go back to the questions. I wanted to go over that really fast. So I see a question here that says, can employees use the grant as well as the board members to build org strength, like learning to do grants? Yes. So as in, I think what you're saying is that maybe hiring a consultant to come in and train your staff on fundraising and grant management and grant finding practices. Yes. Again, our goal with building organizational strength is helping you wherever your org needs it. A great way to decide that is to perform a self-assessment on your organization. There are a lot of resources for that online, including within the National Council on Nonprofits. And that is a great way to start to see what needs our undivided attention right now. Does our staff need training on how to apply for grants? Okay, let's apply for a grant to learn how to do that. I think that that's totally eligible. We have a larger list on our website as well of examples for that category. Our other question is about religious sites. Yes, religious sites are eligible for Nuestra Herencia grants as long as they meet our other criteria, as in they have a 501c3 that they can apply under and are Latinx led and or Latinx serving. And it's just a matter of proving the significance of the church or religious site to Latinx history. We would just need to know that. But two of our grantees from Cycle 1 are places of worship, one of which is a historic church that serves a Latino community in Bastrop, Texas, serving a community for generations, for someone's whole lifespan. They'll be baptized there, continue going there as they can no longer use stairs. And they did not have another way to enter the building. So our grant is helping them install an ADA compliant ramp, so that way people can continue to use the building. So that's an aspect of capital projects, though. That's a capital project, different from what we're talking about today. Do I have any other questions? I will put my face and email up on the screen. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Karina, Jen, do you have any final words you'd like to share?
I say good luck to everyone, and thank you everyone for attending the webinar, considering an application, and ultimately submitting an application.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. Thank you all. Thank you. Okay, if you have a question, you have my email. I hope to hear from you. And thank you, as always, to our amazing interpreters, Cinco Rios Multilingual Initiatives, who I can never hear their work because they're translating what I say. We thank them, and now they have to thank themselves because they have to say that in Spanish. Okay, bye, everybody.